Now it is our privilege to witness Mr. Abhishek Walwal to come on stage to welcome our National President, Mr. Ravinder Kumar. And these are like, this is the time for us, I request all of you to stand for our nation. Honorable Minister, August of Honor, our National President and to proceed like of the land. And I also request our Director, National Council, Mr. Vijay Kumar Singhania sir, and also National President, and also National Council Director, Ashish Ajmera sir, to come on to the stage. And I also request Sriram sir to please come on to the stage. Your Honorable Mr. Sir, and I just want to thank the National President and all the directors and Sriram sir for raising the occasion like of the land. Thank you. Before we proceed to the welcome members, sir, AMI is the national forum for all our capital markets community, the broking community, national election members or our members. And we have comprising of around 850 members, which constitutes 90% of the active members of trading exchanges, the stock exchange as well as this. And we have also taken place in various international forums, and also we advocate our issues on the national as well as the local issues, what are relevant in the international domains. And we as ANMI, or the co-chair, as Mr. Sriram is the director on Industry Standards Forum, which is set up by SEBI. So we have advocacy with the regulators and we or the voice of the capital market. This is the brief introduction of our association. We thank you very much for raising our occasion and on this event. I request now Sainana to please come and welcome. Give the welcome. Thank you.
I don't think Mumbai could have more pride today in welcoming the most popular Honorable External Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar. And I think we should do it with a huge round of applause. Dr. Jaishankar ji, I want to tell you, as part of Vishesh Sampark, we as a party have been reaching out to different segments of society to speak about our Honorable Prime Minister's vision for a Viksit Bharat. And when we say Viksit Bharat, what do we want? We want a strong Prime Minister, we want a competent Home Minister, and we want a statesman, Honorable External Affairs Minister. This is what keeps India safe. And I know that for all of you who are here to hear our Honorable Speaker today, we want it to be interactive because the BJP believes in reaching out to every segment of society. We want to engage, and संवाद जैसे बोलते हैं, संवाद की शुरुआत होती है सवालों से. मैं धन्यवाद देना चाहती हूँ नेशनल स्टॉक एक्सचेंज, आशीष चौहान जी जो यहाँ उपस्थित नहीं है, अमीश and the entire team. I'd like to thank Goel ji and Annie for supporting, and for all you youngsters there, as we used to do in our college programs, please come and sit on the stairways because there's no better speaker and nobody who commands more respect than Dr. Jaishankar ji. So let's welcome him in the Mumbai style with hospitality, but with all the questions we have in our mind. So thank you, sir, for being a part of Vishesh Sampark, and we hope that 2014, 2019, 2024 was only the trailer, and 2047 is the real picture we're all looking forward to. So thank you, Mumbai, all for being here. Yes, that's the spot. Please come and sit on the stairways, enjoy this session, and without wasting even one more minute, I will request our chief guest for today, Dr. Jaishankar ji, to please address us.
My senior colleague Shaina ji, Vinod Goel ji, dear friends. First of all, let me say it's always a pleasure to be in Mumbai, and particularly at a time when there's a lot of excitement in the air. It's good to feel it in a few other states and cities as well, and I thank you for taking the time out and joining me today. I was asked to speak about a roadmap for Viksit Bharat. Now, when you think of a roadmap, you kind of get a sense, there's a pathway, there's a journey, you're almost like sitting in a vehicle. So I would say for a pathway, the first thing you have to do is to press the button and make sure you press the right button. Once you press that button and the right button, you are on that pathway. But it isn't just that, I can assure you that when you press that button, after June 4th, there will be strong acceleration. We will be well on our way, quickly on our way. For 100 days, there will be a lot that we will journey. But all passengers and all, I would say, drivers as well, would do well to look at the rear view mirror also from time to time. Because when you look at the rear view mirror, you will not only, one part of you will see the destination, but you will also get a sense of what we have achieved, what has been the record for the last 10 years. Also, to be honest, where we have perhaps fallen short, what is it we should be doing more, or what should we be doing differently. So I want you to be very clear. Driverless cars are for somebody else right now. This car has a driver. It has a very experienced driver. And whatever else you do not allow a bunch of people to do the driving shift one by one. That doesn't work. You need a person with a license, with a 10-year record of driving Bharat. And that is really the pathway on which we should all be traveling. So let's, for a moment, step back and look out and ask ourselves, saying, what is the world saying about us? Because, we are talking a lot among ourselves. Natural democracies, people talk, Mumbai even more. So the world actually has tried to put this in some kind of numbers sense. That today 3.7, 3.8 trillion dollar economy, next maybe 3-4 years becomes $5 trillion economy. You already are seeing stories in the press saying, how would Japan feel when we overtake them? So it happens with pathway mein you overtake people, ek gaadi hoti hai, dusri gaadi hoti hai, this Germany's turn will come after that. And the general expectation is that the period which we call Amrit Kal, that we will reach that destination, Viksit Bharat. The expectation, the projection today is that we will be a $30 trillion economy. But the projection goes on beyond that. And there's actually, I think many of you would be familiar with it, there's a Goldman Sachs report which actually says that in the 25 years after that, that by the time we reach the 2070s, we will actually be a $52.5 trillion economy, at that time second only to China. And I cannot personally believe that India will ever settle for being second. So I can imagine that Indian desire to overtake will come there also. And surely, we will get our noses ahead at that point of time. Now, this, some years ago, people would have said it is a possibility. Today, we think of it as a probability. But it is up to all of us, by pressing the right button, by making sure we support the right policies, by contributing to a lot of the thinking and the debates in our own society about where we should be heading. We have to take what is a possibility in our probability and make it an inevitable. That is really what this pathway is about. Now, how do we take Bharat forward? We can have a long debate. I will maybe sum it up in terms of 5 or 6 major dimensions of it. And obviously, I think nobody would dispute it, the basis is economics. That we are today, our economy back to that 7% growth rate, confident of pushing it into the 8s, and moved up from number 11 a decade ago to number 5. But it's not just the size of the economy, it's also the confidence and the soundness of the economy. That, remember, a decade ago we were part of the fragile 5. Today people have much nicer adjectives before that word 5 for us. But it will happen, for this, in this pathway, if we are to become a Viksit Bharat, we really have to grow manufacturing in this country. Without a growth, a robust growth, a sustained growth of manufacturing, we will neither get the employment numbers, nor will we get the technology which we will need. You can't be one of the top countries in the world relying on other people's technology. It doesn't work. And you can't get technology if you don't have a manufacturing industry. So part of it is manufacturing, because it's also crucial to employment. That we will never be able to meet the employment challenges if we do not very substantially focus on manufacturing. To do that, we need to keep pushing on infrastructure. That, I've come to this city from time to time. I don't obviously live here, but one advantage is you have reference points from, 6 months ago, 1 year ago, 2 years ago. I can see, there was a period before I became a minister, I used to work in this city, but partly 2 days in a week when I was with, I was living in Delhi and working with Tata Sons at that point here. And you can see today the change, the infrastructure change. And the more you travel around the country, when you look actually at the solid numbers, when you look at the highways, the airports, the trains, the physical kind of indices of what are the progress, it's actually very impressive. That, we ourselves don't realize today that we are building 28 kilometers of highway every day, or that we are laying 14 kilometers of railway track every day. Every day, think about it. That we actually build 8 new airports every year. That you can go today to third-tier cities and look at the quality of the airports. And if you really want to feel good after that, go to Europe and do the comparison. You actually see today, what is the change. But so we have to focus on manufacturing, have to push infrastructure strongly, clearly have to focus on food and health security, which means we have to be broadly, nobody can be completely self-sufficient, but we have to largely be able to meet our own needs out there, which means, again, a big investment in agriculture production, in food processing, in health, the entire chain of health. And I come to, in a sense, what is the overarching concept, which is Make in India. Because if we do not make in India, we've heard a lot of talk after 1992 about why globalizing is good. I agree, globalizing is good. But globalizing does not mean that I give other countries level playing field or even advantageous playing field in my home with their subsidies and their manipulated factors of production. But if we do not start, when we stand up for Indian business, we stand up for Indian working class, we stand up for Indian labor, we stand up for Indian trade. And today it's important, if necessary, we go against, you can say, conventional wisdom. And that is really what we have done in the last 10 years, which is we've had the courage to chart our own way, not listening to a lot of unsolicited advice about what is good for us, but really having a sense on the ground. Having a sense on the ground why it is necessary for this country to actually make more and more of its requirements. Now you will hear people tell you it won't be competitive. Perhaps not in the initial stages. But if you follow that logic, it will never be competitive, because once you have fallen behind, we will never catch up unless you have somebody like Narendra Modi who says, I will do what it takes to pull our economy up to a point where we will be competitive. And once you start making that effort, actually it's much more successful than you would think. Now, I would say in different ways today, you can actually see and look at our export numbers. I mean, given the cost of money in this country, I think it's super impressive today that we actually have pulled out of COVID, pushed our exports today to record numbers, despite all the structural handicaps that we've had. And again, a lot of it reflects the progress of the last decade, the better infrastructure, the easier to do business, the less bureaucratic way by which, if one goes to a port and look at really today the turnaround times in a port, you can see the difference. So my first point is economics. The second is good governance. No brainer. Okay. You need a government which works faster, better, which combats corruption. And here, in a way, we have found a silver bullet. That silver bullet is digitization. That the impact that digital tools and digital platforms have made on the quality of governance, I cannot even tell you. Today I had a briefing at this very venue. Now, I was looking in a way at what digital has done to what is a very old business. But there is no domain in the world and no domain in our life today where we are not feeling that impact of digital. It comes with its risks, which is why you have a cyber unit, which is why we in the government have a cyber unit. But along with the risks, the more we embrace digitization, and there, if I were to pick one big governance change which Prime Minister Modi has personally instilled in this country, it is actually this embrace of digital mechanisms and digital instruments really to improve governance. And what it has done in a way is it's actually prevented leakage on a massive scale. That when you look, and I'll briefly touch on that, you look today at the scale of public goods being delivered. You know, the rations, the health, the houses, the water, the gas cylinders. They are being targeted. They're not being siphoned out. You don't have ghost accounts or Z names out there. You don't have them because of the modernization, the digitalization of really what we're doing. And in many ways, I'm personally proud that my ministry led the way by first reforming the passport, the entire passport issue system. I mean, many of you would remember the old days of the paper applications and the touts outside the office and the getting testimonials from other people and ringing up people in order to, so that they know somebody who will then fast track your passport. I'm not even talking of the payments that you would have made. Now look today. I mean, judge it by your individual experience. And it's a very, to me it was always sort of a source of bafflement, till you actually discovered that there were those vested interests. There were those vested interests which fought, the efficiencies which we introduced in governance. And when we look at the country today, I mean, mine was a minuscule activity. I mean, I totally, today in the foreign ministry, we issued maybe 13-14 million passports a year. I compare, I'm proud of that. But imagine when you're doing 815 ration recipients. Imagine if I had a vested interest in passports, how much vested interest there must have been in Russia. How much there would be in various kinds of employment schemes. How much there would be in allocation of houses. So the reform of the governance, better governance, defeating the vested interest, preventing the leakage, these are fundamentals, because these are legacy issues. We need to clean up, like you would clean up any financial institutions in a way. We need, frankly, to clean up our act. We need to clean up our act, and that is really in many ways what Narendra Modi has managed to do in the last 10 years. Now, when we speak about growth, obviously, growth cannot be for some and have people who are visibly left behind. This is common sense. I think if you look wherever there has been steady, sustainable progress, the size of the middle class has increased. You have to, go the extra mile for those who have been disadvantaged historically, or who are find themselves in circumstances where they need much more from the state and the government. And here I would just make 2 points for your consideration. One, the scale of our achievement. I mean, today we say we are preparing the ground for Viksit Bharat. Part of the reason is, in the last 10 years, according to Niti Aayog, 250 million people have come out of poverty, and that is actually the largest growth that we have seen in that category in our entire history. The second, when you look at the scale of our delivery, we took programs, some programs never existed, some did. But what was there in the thousands or the tens of thousands or the lakhs today has become in the crores and the tens of crores. And if you just look at the scale of actually what we deliver to our people, I can tell you, when I go abroad and talk about this, because there's a lot of interest in the world on this subject, they just marvel at those numbers. I mean, it's the way I marveled at the number of transactions you guys actually do out here. Now, these are sizes of multiple countries, sometimes continents. I mean, I sometimes joke with people. Imagine if somebody told me in 2014 that we are electing a prime minister who in his tenure will develop the capacity to feed all of Europe and America, who will have enough houses to house all of Japan and Germany, who will change the kitchens from firewood to gas cylinders of all of France and Germany, who would actually have provide more pipe water connections than exist in all of Latin America. I think you would have said such a person, doesn't he? He does. His name is Narendra Modi. Because that is actually, if you look at the scale of actually what our delivery has been. So this good governance, economic growth, good governance, inclusive India, Samaveshi Bharat, they go together as a package. You cannot, if you are to sustain it, you are to go down this pathway. You can't have one and not have the other. So we move to the next part, which is to sustain it, of course, we need people. Life is about the quality of human resources. And that is something we really need to accelerate, because we've had a if you use any metric, just raw, how many colleges have been created in the last 10 years. I think many of you would be surprised at what the number is. It's actually 7,000. But if you look, we have challenges. We may worry about the quality of some of these colleges. Or we look at the top end, how many more AIMS, how many more IIMs, how many more IITs, how many more triple ITs. There is, in this country, you can never have enough, because actually our baseline was so low that, it was interesting. When I finished school, I sat for the IIT exam. I even, after my first degree, briefly joined an IIT. By the time I reached the end of my career, or I would say middle, maybe 2/3 of my career, the number of IITs actually hadn't changed in this country. Now, if you look in the last 10 years, both at the base level and at the premier level, you actually had a huge increase, not just of education, also the idea that we need to skill people and make them relevant to the workplace. And that will only happen when we take manufacturing seriously, because you will never skill people for manufacturing if you don't take manufacturing as a proposition to begin with. So I draw a connection here between your economic choices and your educational decisions, and your educational decisions and your skill capabilities. So these are actually different facets of how Viksit Bharat we can do. And not just that, along with that, we have today to prepare for the global workplace. It's a paradox that the countries most developed, maybe it's not, it's a logic of a kind. The countries most developed are the ones which actually today face the greatest demographic challenge. And the demographic, shift is so radical. People speak saying game changer in the next 10 years is going to be AI. I agree. But I think there's a second game changer which people don't recognize, and that is actually demographics. Because you're not going to see that line. You're going to see countries fall off the cliff. You're going to see massive declines, very, very sharp decline in the working population of many countries. And that interest is already today very visible in the manner in which the world engages. Some of you would have read this news story 4 days ago, that suddenly the number of Indian students in Germany have exceeded the number of Chinese students. Why do you think it happened? Or if you follow the Semiconductor Industry Association in the US, look at it today in India. And interest today in actually working with Indian companies. So I put two propositions to you to think about when it comes to Viksit Bharat. One, a global workplace where mobility of Indians will become very important, which also means this ability, what we call Modi's guarantee abroad. This guarantee that we will secure Indian citizens wherever they are is more important. But also you will see a new phenomenon. I spoke about made in India. We will see the phenomenon of work from India. Work from India actually for the rest of the world. This is going to happen. And it's not going to happen at the end of the decade. It's going to happen actually in the next few years. And finally, I make this point that you can have the economics, you can have the social policies, you can have the technology skills, you can have good governance. But every nation, if it is to actually move up the chain, must have the self-confidence. That self-confidence, it will have different expressions. You know, the right to defend yourself, the right to pursue your interest, the ability to stand up to pressure. It'll, you know, I can give you the thinking. I would say, to me, actually, that self-confidence is also, a lot of it is thinking through your own. Many of us in the policy world, maybe even in other worlds, we tend to get pressurized by what we read, people to whom we have historically deferred, that, you know, if they say this, then maybe we should be listening to it. You know, am I really doing the right thing, because it's not what is the advice which others are giving. So how do you actually develop that confidence and that capability to back your judgment? And it doesn't come easy. You know, somebody has to lead. Somebody has to have those big judgments which we subscribe to, and by trial and error we validate actually in our own, in our own experience. And if you look at some of these recent, experiences we've had, we went through COVID. Okay, COVID was, we had public health judgments. Do we import vaccines? Do we make our own vaccines? Can we afford to import vaccines? Do we then limit vaccination to a few, or do we make our own? Do we do it on such a mass scale so that we actually do universal vaccination in this country? Or, for me at that time, the economic decisions, do all the effort that we had made in tightening the fiscal deficit from 2014 till 2020, do we blow the bank in response to the COVID? I think we had a Prime Minister who had the courage to say he would not do it. That we would find other ways by which we would respond. We would give actually direct support to people who are most vulnerable, but he was not going to let all the hard work after 2014 actually be destroyed by the COVID. Now, many countries didn't make that choice. That if you look today at a very big part of the explanation for the global economic slowdown, it is actually the manner in which a lot of economies, especially developed economies, responded to the COVID. So it could be in national security that, when we had in May of 2020, we had the Chinese actually in violation of agreements move a lot of forces to the border. Remember, we were in the middle of a lockdown. I mean, you could not move out of your house to the next street. And yet we moved tens of thousands of troops with supporting weapons. We moved more troops to the China border than we have actually ever done, including during wartime. And we were able to do that because we took that call, that the only way to respond to them is to counter deploy and to push back. So, or, I'm in a city which has been the biggest victim of terrorism in this country. So we have to take that call. I mean, it's a self-confidence call. Do you continuously put up with it because that guy threatens you with nuclear weapons and the rest of the world says, no, Pakistan will be like this and it's your karma to put up with it? How long will you put up with it? Or do you say, no, I'm not going to put up with it, I will handle the rest of the world, but I will make sure that he pays a cost every time he does. And that is the only way by which we have actually guaranteed in the last 10 years. That is, how do you make this city terror-free? I mean, this city has seen more terror out of Pakistan than any other city in this country. So because it's a financial center, it's a natural magnet for their terrorists. So how do we ensure? So it is a judgment call. It's a judgment call which you get out of self-confidence. So let me therefore sum it up. I mean, to me, a Viksit Bharat pathway is economic, it is technology driven. Because there are a lot of sunrise industries which are coming, semiconductors, chips, electric vehicles, drones, space. We cannot not be part of it. So it is economic, it is technology, it is inclusiveness, it is good governance, it is the courage to, it is human resources, it is the courage to take the right decision, the confidence to take the right decisions. And finally, I would say in many ways, it is also culture and civilization. Because a people who do not know where they came from will not know where they're going. So when you look at that pathway, it is important to remember our roots, to remember our beliefs, to take pride in what we are. Because only then we can actually take pride in what we do. So once again, really thank you very much for your attention.
So now we open this to all the people in the audience, the intelligent audience. May I request you to please keep the question short, introduce yourself, and we'll request somebody to circulate this mic. Would you like me to? Okay. When we claim back POK, just for the audience, will it be only the land or the people with it?
Okay. So the first question is, when we claim back POK, will it be only the land or the people with it? If the people do, then the whole of Pakistan will be part of POK. Please enlighten us. I think the person who asked the question has enlightened everybody. So, look, you know, to me it's very interesting. Till Article 370 was abrogated and settled, actually I didn't even see much of a POK debate in this country. There was a time in the 1990s when it was a big issue, and there was actually a parliament resolution that, you know, all the parties agreed. But then again it kind of went into a kind of dormancy out there. So I would say today the fact that there is much sharper awareness, even in public opinion, about POK is something which is very welcome. And you know, for us, the initial goal was first to deal with the 370 issue. The country has already seen after 5 years how much of a difference there is today in the ground situation in Jammu and Kashmir as a result today of it being fully integrated with this country. So that part is integrated. There is the other part. So watch part 2 of the series.
Sir, I would like to interrupt you, sir. I am Mohit Agarwal, extremely grateful to BJP, to Modi ji and to you for Operation Kaveri.
Question.
For Operation Kaveri. I was the first Indian to get back home and land back from Sudan. It's all thanks to you. This is such a life I owe it to you and to Modi ji. I'm extremely grateful. And I wish I could do something for this country now. Thank you very much, sir.
You can. Just make sure everybody presses the right button.
Yes, sir. I had actually given up hopes to come back home.
No, but look, I will. Let me respond to this. So I treat it as a question. You know, today about 17, 18 million Indians, almost 2 crore, you can say. India, that is people with Indian passports. I'm not even talking of people who have other passports of Indian origin. They live and work outside India. And we are actually seeing a lot of professions globalized today. You know, once that awareness comes, I got that awareness actually during COVID, when we were organizing this Vande Bharat flights. Till COVID started, we actually didn't even have a very good idea how many people lived abroad in which countries. It came really as an awakening to us. Now, once that thought starts going in your mind, and I want to infect all of you with that. Whenever you go abroad, I just want you to think this. Look at the plane you are traveling. Look at the air crew. Look at the hotel you are staying. How many people from India are working out there? Look around you, at the presence of your fellow citizens. And you will actually be impressed today. You can go to the smallest, most remote country in the world. So there is a certain responsibility which comes with that. You came from Sudan. Now, the fact is, for Operation Kaveri in Sudan to happen, actually you needed two things. For anything to happen, you need two things. You need a system. Okay? Within 24 hours of things going wrong, we were able to get the Navy out there, we were able to get the Air Force operating out there, we were able to insert multiple teams out there. So one part of it is system. But the other part is actually motivation. Because I can tell you, in two operations, people took extreme personal risks to do the job. In the case of Sudan, one of our aircraft actually did a very hazardous landing, a very, very dangerous landing, in order to pick people out. And in the case of Ukraine, there were actually people who went to the zones of fighting to pull people out. So when we say Viksit Bharat, it's not just the landscape we are talking. We are talking about charged up people. We are talking about people who are willing to do things for their country, who are willing to, really push themselves. Because there is a feeling today that, look, people expect us that this is a different India, it is Modi's India, so we will do what we have to do to complete the job. So let me now from that come back to this question, which is India's strict capital controls. Is there a roadmap to ease those controls and attract more foreign capital? Well, I definitely would say, this is really not, in a sense, my bread and butter, but I would say this, that I expect post-election a surge in investments both at home and abroad. I am actually personally familiar in many cases with people who are just waiting it out. They've kind of mentally made up their mind. I think with their own boards or their own partners, they want to formalize it before they take the call. But we will have again to chart out our own pathway. I'm seeing a certain internationalization. Look, our trade settlements in our own currency is increasing. So we will have to go step by step, but it will have to suit our circumstances. Because remember, at the end of the day, we are still below $3,000 per capita. So in total aggregate terms, we are very strong. But so let's not get too carried away. I would say I would really insert a degree of caution in our thinking. Next one, what do you think that we can beat China in? How do you beat China in production? We have a license Raj in states. There is a lot of harassment by so-called RTI activists. Someone has had a hard time, I think. But look, I put it this way. I truly believe we can, we should, and we must compete with China. I think this idea that they have become such a giant in manufacturing, and therefore our fate is that we should only be importing from them. It's a problem. Now, I'm not impervious to the business compulsions of this country. I've lived, a lot of my life in a kind of a business environment. I briefly had a corporate incarnation. I understand the compulsions of business, but I would still say it is in our interest today to grow our own business. I think we should not be hostage to supply chains, particularly from a neighbor with whom there are structural problems in a way. Now, in some ways, global developments are actually going to be the answer, because there will be many domains today in India where the supply chains, the more we get integrated into supply chains, and there are going to be more secure supply chains. A lot of countries in the world, especially the United States, today is becoming very, very touchy about the nature of the supply chains. So they are looking to build new supply chains, and if we find ways and to which we need to shape up, we need to have the right policies. And the example here is actually semiconductors. That if you look at the COVID and the post-COVID, our auto production in this country slowed down because of lack of chips. Now, how long are we going to remain dependent on other people for the supply of chips? Now, there are people who argue we should not be investing in semiconductors, that it's a big subsidy, that we should use that money elsewhere. But if we do not have an autonomous semiconductor production or chips production, it's not just semiconductors. There are a whole lot of other industries which are actually linked to it. You will then be waiting in the queue of other people's chip production to see when your turn comes out there. And secondly, you will be permanently technologically backward. So I do believe that we have to work at both levels. At a kind of a baseline level, there are a whole lot of industries where we need to push it. But there are these sunrise sectors, as I say. Here we don't, we have not sort of fallen behind, because there is a sort of a wave of investments in these sectors, and they are very HR intensive. We should use, the talent, human talent is actually today our biggest card, which we have inadequately deployed, and we need really to push that.
So I'll ask the question only because I'm going to request the person to stand. India-US relationship is volatile at best and bullying at worst. What will it take to stabilize it to reach an even keel? Sanjay ji, Sanjay Kulshrestha.
So you're accusing me of bullying US? No, seriously. Look, I think it's a relationship which is still kind of growing, evolving. It will have its friction points, it will have its bumps, and there's a very practical reason for it. Because, the United States, given its history, given its dominance, is used to a certain way of dealing with other countries. Okay. Given our history and our sensitivities, it's not something which we can, their old way, I would say, in a way. Because see, remember, we have never been part of an alliance structure. What happens is, in an alliance structure, there is a certain way, there's a certain hierarchy, and there's a way by which decisions are made and debates are conducted. So for both of us, it is actually in different ways a new ground that we have entered. But my own experience in Quad has been that actually they have adjusted a lot. They accept in many ways, look, I had this big debate with them even on buying Russian oil. Okay, the first reaction was very negative, but when you actually sat and reasoned with them, and the good thing about the United States is, because it's a global, it's truly a global power, they have a very considered view of a particular topic. So when we put it to them, saying, imagine if Russian oil doesn't get picked up, what would happen? The overall global oil markets would tighten. Everybody will take a hit. So we actually are easing up market conditions for you, because that market needs to find a way of that oil supply needs to find a way of coming into the market. So we found the US actually much more understanding than, say, our experience was with the Europeans, who were much more emotional about it. And perhaps, they were much closer in a way to the zone of conflict as well. So I feel we are settling down to a certain more contemporary kind of relationship. There is a lot of baggage in that relationship. I mean, every Indian, when we think of US, we have Pakistan complaint, we have that Bangladesh Iraq complaint, that's there. We need to move beyond. I think time has come for that.
Akash, are you in the audience? Considering the developing and positive international relations, how positive will it be for the stock market by 2047?
If any of you can develop an algorithm for that, you'll get a Nobel Prize for multiple subjects. But I can only tell you this, that usually, a lot of us in the government, we have hesitation of getting into the markets. But other members of my family tell me that pretty much a lot of what my parents or my grandparents handed over to them have done very well in the last 10 years. So if they've done well in the last 10 years, imagine what awaits you in the 25.
Tejas Shah, in your book, you have highlighted the internal risks emerging from the borderless politics. Do you sense that it is playing a pivotal role in this election?
I don't think it's playing a pivotal role, but I'm very conscious that there's a sustained campaign by some sections to kind of, I don't want to say undermine because it's not in the capability to do this, but definitely to influence the election. That by kind of questioning the ethos, questioning the system, questioning the election commission, the voting mechanism, so they take all the variables of what is an election and then start going after it one by one. In fact, I told people they even attack the weather. So I don't think it's an accident. If you look at where that kind of drumbeat of criticism is coming, it's done by people who clearly are politically partial, they have an agenda, they have friends, they have a vichardhara, they have an ideology. And many of them are very openly uncomfortable or critical of the government, and which is why they are doing it. But I believe our systems are robust enough. I would say that our people are sensible enough. I think today their ability to make up their minds on the basis of their experience and other people's records, I think that is really what will decide this election.
Paras Desai from Shri Naman Securities and Finance Private Limited. This is his second question. Is de-dollarization a possibility in the near term? How should the markets perceive a move to de-dollarize?
De-dollarize to my mind is putting it too strongly, because at the end of the day, you've seen really what the impact of dollar has been on everybody. But I would flag 2 points for your consideration. One, that if one looks at, I'm now moving away from currency, we look at a lot of the other changes in the world. How countries have started dealing with each other more directly, not necessarily going through America, etc. It is bound to have a currency implication. If country X and country Y both have problems with America, and they will de-risk their transactions by finding a third or possibly a bilateral, a one-to-one option. And we are beginning to see, I think, a lot of it. The second is actually there is, in many parts of the world, there's shortage of dollars. I go to Africa. One of the regular complaints I hear is, look, we'd love to trade more with you, but we just don't have the hard currency. And so what this also has, therefore, is that we make settlements in our own currencies or in Indian rupees more and more attractive. It is a solution for the problems of, I can see, I can tell you in our immediate neighborhood, for example, if you ask me next 5 years, I see a big change coming. I think you're going to see much more trade settlements in our own currency than we've ever seen before. And so to that extent, I would say the kind of reliance on the dollar or the salience of the dollar would be diluted. I would say de-dollarization is a very, very strong word. Yes, sir.
Last three questions. Mayank, who says, what is your take on neighbors like Maldives and Sri Lanka being allies of China? Will investing in these nations help India in the long run? Where is Mayank?
Oh, here, right up there. Well, look, I don't agree with your characterization. I don't think these countries should be regarded as allies of China. I mean, they have relations with China. They obviously will try to get the maximum benefit that they may take from a kind of a China-India, situation. But I mean, if you take Sri Lanka, when Sri Lanka was in trouble, finally, who came forward to help Sri Lanka? Who has helped to stabilize its economy? You look today at Lanka Strait, look where travel, where do they go for their education? So we need to be much more confident about our own abilities, especially vis-a-vis our neighbors. That when you look at our neighbors today, for very basic things, are actually very much connected with us. I give the second example, Maldives. I just had my Maldivian counterpart in Delhi days ago. Now, I'm not saying we don't have problems. We do. It's in the nature of politics, that there will be changes of governments, there will be changes of policies. Neighbors will differ with other neighbors. They will negotiate. They will sometimes give you a hard time. We have to take it as par for the course. But we have to, at the end of the day, it's our neighborhood. There are certain structural realities which come with it. When that neighborhood has at its center a country with those kinds of numbers I gave you, 4 trillion going on to 5 trillion, going to 30 trillion. I mean, this is a reality the neighbors also have to look at. So I think, I would urge you not to get too carried away by some of the, social media and media sometimes by nature of their profession. They don't make it dramatic. So you have to sharpen it. Okay, it's their technique. But the reality is much more sober than that. So I'm not complacent. But believe me, I am competitive. I am very clear in my neighborhood. In my neighborhood, I will do everything and more to make sure that Indian interests are always not just protected, but actually advanced.
Yashashri from IITB and ISB, how can the Ministry of External Affairs leverage global capital markets to support India's forest producer enterprises central to climate action and forest restoration?
Look, it's too specific in a way, but I can only say this to you, that if you look again at the last decade, please. We've actually, first of all, there's been a transformation in our approach to climate change. Today, India, we push the International Solar Alliance. We are today, pushing the disaster resilient infrastructure. Prime Minister Modi introduced an idea which looked like a science fiction fantasy, but now is actually a business proposition, which people are working on, which is the idea of building solar grids across countries so that you catch the sun for longer periods. The whole idea, the LED programs that we've had, the energy efficiency, one of the big promises we have made in this election, which is Muft Bijli, the whole, that we can massively do solar rooftop in this country. It will actually decentralize, it would make it greener, its employment consequences would be huge, its business consequences would be enormous. So the and in this, the growth, I would say regrowth of forests, and also biodiversity, because the two go hand in hand. I think these are actually concerns. One part of Viksit Bharat is also a greener and cleaner Bharat, a Bharat with more forest cover, a Bharat with more biodiversity, a Bharat which is less carbonized than it is today. So those are very much the priorities, but again, we'll have to pace it out. We should not end up I mean, we are actually seeing countries which were, I would call, anti-coal fundamentalists. But when their time came, many of these countries in Europe had no hesitation in restarting the fossil fuel plants because the geopolitics of their day demanded it. So we should be a bit, we should be quite considered about charting our way forward in this.
The last question for today, Amit Dubey. Is it easy for autocratic nations to destabilize democratic process with the help of social media as they have full control over their own population? Where is Amit Dubey?
Well, I think if you look at the use of social media as a political tool, it's not just autocratic states. I mean, I see very strong ideological lobbies even in democratic states which are busy doing a lot of that. So, yes, autocratic states can, fashion it on a more 24/7 basis as a kind of a instrument of influence or of stability, instability, whatever it is. I accept that point. But here again, my own sense is, in certain cases, if we need to spread that awareness. But please keep in mind, in many ways, we saw a lot of these challenges coming. There is a debate today in the world, in the US, for example, about TikTok. We blocked TikTok 4 years ago. We are very, we have, in the last, around 2020, I think we blocked about 500 odd games and apps. Partly because we see it as agenda driven, but partly because they're actually massively harvesting our data. And this is again an issue. I mean, it's not a direct answer to your question, but we need to be much more conscious and aware of the value of our data. That is, I mean, this data about data being the new oil is actually an understatement. It is to me the new gold. So I would say, it's important that we consider different implications. We can't take anything in the digital domain anymore at face value.
Thank you so much, Dr. S. Jaishankarji. I think Mumbai would love to give you a standing ovation because of your humility and the time you have given our city and to the nation.
Thank you very much, sir. This is a wonderful, energetic and charged up session. We can see from the faces of the audience that how the environment has just changed different. And we have chosen, I believe, the right button already, and which the next big issue is going to come up. And with this, thank you very much, sir, again. I request Sriramji to come onto the dais to have a moment of presentation to the chief
Please
guest.
sit down. Excuse.
So this is a tradition of our National Stock Exchange, who is partnering this event with us. And this is Sriram who is going to take up. Thank you very much. I request Rohit Mandotraji to come onto that stage and present a memento to Shri Shaina ma'am for this as a just gracious love and affection consideration. Thanks for accepting. Now I request Abhishek to come onto the stage to present a memento to our National President and me, Mr. Vinod Kumar Goyal ji. Thank you very much, sir. With this, I request National President to give concluding remarks. Thank you very much, sir.
माननीय विदेश मंत्री जी, माननीय साइना जी, महाराष्ट्र स्टेट की प्रभारी और उपस्थित सब महानुभावों, हमारे लिए तो ये एनएसी का एक्सचेंज प्लाजा एक तीर्थ से कम नहीं है, और उसमें ये जो घंटी जो तीर्थ में मंदिरों में लगी रहती है वो प्रदान की गई। यही सिंबॉलिक है कि हम फाइनेंस के मंदिर में बैठे हुए हैं। और जो सर ने कहा कि हमने वॉकिंग अगेंस्ट द कन्वेंशनल विजडम, तो मुझे एक मूवी याद आ रही है यहाँ बम्बई की, जिसका नाम था अमर अकबर एंथोनी। उसका टाइटल सॉन्ग था अनहोनी को कर दे होनी और होनी को कर दे अनहोनी, जब मिल जाए तीनों अमर अकबर एंथोनी। सर, आपने जिस हिसाब से ये G20 का रेजोल्यूशन पास करवाया, जिस हिसाब से अभिनंदन को पाकिस्तान से वापस लाया, और जिस हिसाब ये हुआ अनहोनी को आपने होनी किया, और एक होनी थी कि जब यूक्रेन वार में रसिया पर सैंक्शन लगा तेल एक्सपोर्ट करने के लिए, तो हमें वो होना था हमारे लिए भी, उसको आपने अनहोनी किया, क्रूड मंगवाया डिस्काउंट पर, और वो भी रूपी ट्रेड में। सर, यही प्रशंसनीय है और यही हमारा ये है। और सर हमारी सरकार का जो एक मंत्र है कि सबका साथ, सबका विकास, सबका प्रयास, तो मैं हमारे एनमी के 800 सदस्यों की तरफ से आश्वासन देता हूं कि हमारा ये हमेशा प्रयास रहेगा कि जो भी सरकार एक्शन ले उसमें हमारा सफल और सकारात्मक योगदान रहेगा। नमस्कार।
Thank you to a wonderful audience on a weekday. Please have lunch with us.